What is going on, everybody? Bryce, your favorite AMPIA and Part 147 instructor, back with another video. If you are new to the channel and this is the first video you clicked on, I've made quite a few videos about becoming an AMP, testing 147 schools, and all that wonderful information. So make sure you click on the playlist somewhere below here. I don't know. There's a playlist for all of this. So make sure you click on that and watch some of my other videos on this topic. But in this video, I'm just going to be answering 3 of the most common questions I get from students and subscribers about testing for your oral and practical / your writtens, timeframes, and all that kind of information. So if that interests you, please, as always, stick around. The first question that I get all the time is, or misconception, I should say, the first myth that I get is people think that if they run out of time on their general written or on their airframe written, I always get asked, how long do I have to take my test? And the answer is 2 years. And a lot of people think that if you do not get your certificate within 2 years of taking that general written, that you have to, for some reason, retake the entire 147 program, which is just not true. In actuality, the only thing that changes is you have to retake the general written test. So I'll give you an example of that. I'll keep the dates really straightforward. If you took your general written in January of 2020 and your airframe written in January of 2021, you have till January of 2022 to finish your general and airframe O and P. Now, here's where that's weird. If you don't get your general written done in time, you don't get your O&P done in time, so you retake your general written in January of 2022, you actually have until January of 23 to take your O&P because you took your airframe in 21 and you have 2 years from the time you took that airframe test. So they each stack 2 years after one another, I should say. But the myth that you have to retake an entire 147 program is just a myth. There's no validity to that statement. That is not the case. So get that out of your mind right now. And I think a lot of people don't take their test for that reason, is that they think if they fail or if they don't get it done in 2 years, they're going to have to go back through a 147 program from start to finish. And it's just not true. All you really have to do is retake that general test or that airframe test or that power plant test, whatever it was that is expired. You'll have to retake it, and then you're clear to go and take your O&P for it then. Now, the second question or the second statement that I get asked a lot, which I kind of already sort of answered, is the time frames and the time limits. I did do an entire video on this. But you have 2 years from the day you take your written test to take your O&P. Like I said, if you run out of time and you have to retake one test, it doesn't mean you have to retake them both. It just means you have to retake the test that you've expired your time frame of, if you will. So this is all really just more motivation for you once you test to get up and go and take the written test. Another one, this is going to be the third thing that I hear a lot, is circling the oral and practical test. I should narrow this down, is that, am I going to get asked the same questions I missed? Am I going to be asked all new questions? What's it look like if I fail? And this is actually coming from a DME that I've spoke to recently, that if you fail the oral and practical or the oral section of your test, when you come back, he's going to ask you all of the questions that you missed again. Now, he might ask you 1 or 2 more, but you are for sure going to get the questions that you missed. So when you're studying to retake your oral exam, probably go ahead and make sure that you study those extra hard and not just, whatever else. Also, another thing, a lot of people are worried about these mystery questions and these things that nobody knows the answer to. Well, I don't know what the questions are, but yes, there are some oral questions. Yes, there are even some written questions that are real off the wall that kind of come out of nowhere for the DMEs. It is possible, I was speaking with a DME, he thought that it's possible that they use this as a metric to test the DMEs. If a bunch of people get those questions right with one DME over and over and over again, then that might be a sign that the DME is sort of leading them to the answer instead of them finding the answer on their own, because there's not really a way that anyone should know that question unless they've exclusively have experience with it. Unfortunately, we don't have access to those questions as your instructors, so I don't even know what they're going to ask you. But the good news is you're probably only going to get 1 or 2 of these random questions. You're not going to get a whole gamut of random questions that you've never seen before. It will just be a handful. I interrupt this video to show you a text my buddy just sent me. He works at an airport and said, "This is what happens when you taxi behind a Saab 340B that's running at full power." I hope you can see that. That's definitely not ideal. Let me see if I can zoom in on it again, but there you go. Anyways, back to the video. The final thing that I will end this video on that I'm getting a lot from people is they are asking me, or they're surprised to find out that the DME can see how many times you took the written test. If you took a general and you failed it, you took it again 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 and you passed it, he can actually see that record. He can see all of the times you took the test. Now, is there anything he can do with that information? Well, yes and no. Your oral and practical test is going to be generated by PSI exams in California. When he puts you in, when he fills out your 8610, if he fills out your 8610, and when he puts in all your information to generate the test, it will spit out a bunch of random questions. So he doesn't know what he's going to ask you. However, this is why that's important. If you did really good on all your writtens and maybe you only took them once, the DME might be a little more apt to give you something when you're 80% of the way there and you're just kind of barely missing it. But if you failed your writtens over and over and over and over again, he may not do that. Now, take that with a grain of salt. If you tell the DME, you go in and you say, listen, I'm just going to warn you right now, sometimes I get nervous on airplanes and I have really bad test anxiety. He may say, that might be why you failed so many times. But I would recommend that you be honest with your DME when you start. Tell him you have really bad test anxiety. Tell him that you get really nervous, really shaky, whatever it is. Maybe he will, just chill with you for a minute, let you relax, let you calm down, and then start taking the test. I'm not sure. But if you go in with a bunch of test anxiety and you're not honest about that, he's going to be like, why is this guy freaking out? Does he not know this? And I've even been guilty of answering my students with a question a certain way. My students will ask me a question and I'll be like, I'm not stupid, I'm just panicking. And I'll tell them that because I know the answer, it's in there somewhere, I haven't found it yet. So take your time, don't jump into answering a question immediately. If he asks you a question, just say, give me a minute, I know this one, and let it come to you. Now, obviously, if you're just sitting there staring off into space for 5 minutes, he's going to want to move on. So like I said, take all of this information as you will. I hope you found some of it helpful. If you have more specific questions, make sure you look at the videos in my playlist. I have got people ask me before, they said, oh, you need to make a video on doing this. And I'm like, here's a link to it. I've already made that video. So make sure you look back through my catalog of So You Want to Be an A&P. That's all of the videos I've made regarding becoming an A&P. I've also done lots of other like maintenance videos and whatnot and some builds on my motorcycle and my car. So at any rate, if you found this helpful, make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment. As always, subscribe, go build something, and be easy.